And we have Vonda Haith Jones on the line now. She's going to talk to us about grief. And, you know, I struggle with this particular meeting because it seems so then we go from talking about the virus to grief, but not, James Baldwin said it's not everything that can be faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed unless it's faced. So I think it's crucial for us to look things squarely in the eye and figure out how we can govern ourselves accordingly. And in the terms of this grief, as I mentioned, I may have mentioned earlier at the top of the meeting, we're not able to grieve in traditional ways sometimes because of this pandemic. The funerals have been restricted. And so we talked about it at the executive committee meeting. Dr. Yarborough suggested that Vonda Haith Jones, who is a grief facilitator, might talk to us about how we can, what kind of resources are available to us, what the grieving process looks like, and how maybe we can accommodate that and take some advice about how to get through those feelings when we're not able to visit with people and to be in community as normal. So, Ms. Jones, it's all you.
Hi, Barrett. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you about grief share is what I'm going to talk about today. A lot of people on the call may be familiar with grief share, but there are many that are not. Grief share is a little bit of background. It's a network of over 12,000 churches worldwide that are equipped to offer grief support groups to those that are in need. In Alamance County, I don't know how many we have. There are several churches that offer it. I know St. Mark's and I think Macedonian Lutheran and Trinity. But so far, Ebenezer United Church of Christ, which I attend, is the only African-American church that is offering grief share at this time. I think some of the others have signed up, but no one is active at this time for African-Americans, but Ebenezer. And it's not just for African-Americans, for anyone that would like to attend. It is non-denominational, it's a biblical-based group, and it has it's a 13-week seminar that we provide, because after the funeral is over, and now we're not even having funerals, but after the memorials have ceased and people have gone back to their regular schedules, the person that has lost a loved one is left empty, not knowing where do we go from here. And the 13-week session of grief share helps them to move toward healing. Now, the grief journey is a very painful one, and I can tell you from experience, because I lost my husband of 48 years 5 years ago. And he and I were met in the first grade, were high school sweethearts, and got married probably a year into college, and had a beautiful, beautiful marriage. I was totally unprepared for his passing. So I can tell you from experience that after the world goes on, you're still kind of left behind. The 13-week seminar addresses all of these issues of whether you've lost a spouse, a child, a parent, another relative that you've been closely connected to. And the sessions that we cover are, is this normal? Because a lot of people think the way that they grieve, and there's no right or wrong way to grieve. We all grieve in our own way. So you want to know, is this normal? What are the challenges that I'm experiencing? And then you have 2 journeys of grief, part 1 and 2, and then grief in your relationships. Those first 5 sessions are provided to bring comfort to the griever. And then we have the next session, which is why did this happen to me? And that's one of mine. Guilt and anger, complicating factors, things that make grieving a little harder. And I think that's where we are right now. during the COVID-19, we're experiencing complicating factors, because this is, in addition to losing a loved one, now you have complications that prevent you from mourning that loss in our normal traditional way. So it's really making it hard for a lot of people to find closure, and you don't really find it immediately, but at least that visual closure of losing someone. And then we talk about being stuck in grief, because you can get stuck there if you continue to just relive all the things that you did, or all the things you didn't get a chance to do, all the things that you had planned. Sometimes we get stuck in grief, and sometimes you have to have more help than what Grief Share can provide. And we readily, when we recognize this in our classes or in our sessions, we encourage others to seek professional help or therapy, or even more spiritual help from pastor or places like that, because sometimes you can get so deep into your grief until you don't realize that, you know, you're stuck there. And then the last 4 areas we cover are lessons in grief that we learn, how why going to church can be so painful. A lot of people can't get back into going back to church again. Sometimes your faith is affected. Mine was when I lost my husband, because my husband was a pastor for 35 years. And I know how hard he worked for God, doing kingdom building and whatever. So it was kind of hard for me to go back to our home church, because he was our pastor. So it was really hard for me to go back and be the minister of music and see someone else stand in the pulpit. But for other people, it is also hard to go back to church, because you have faith issues. You may have prayed for your loved one to be healed, or they may have met death under violent circumstances, or whatever the case. And so going back to church is a big deal. And even being able to pray sometimes is one of the lessons of grief that we have to go through. And then then it goes into deeper lessons of grief. Who am I now that my loved one is gone? I was attached to that person. It was my sister, it was my husband, it was my brother, it was my child. Now what do I do? What is the plan for my life? And then we go into that to talk about heaven. What's your beliefs about heaven? What does the Bible say about heaven? Because this is a biblical based seminar. And what does the Bible say about heaven? What do you believe about heaven? As far as it relates to your loved one. And then the last thing we talk about in week 13 is, what do I live for now? So I'm by myself. I had a partner for 48 years, 53 years. So now, God, what is your plan for me? And so we help others to see that moving forward is necessary, and why we go through this process, and why peace and pain will always coexist, because even the best memories are painful for me. And even, the best, you go through photographs, you see things that are, oh, I remember that. And then the next thing you know, you're crying, because that will never happen again. So we try to help them to, through this 13-week period, to express all of those things. And this is in a group environment. Our groups usually range from 4 people sometimes to as many as 12. And what I've found in the past, so this is Ebenezer's second year doing this. We started last March 2019. And we did a 13-week session from March to June. And then we did another session from September to December. We had started our 3rd session in March when all of the restrictions for COVID came down. So we had to suspend this 3rd session. But we will start back again in September. Now, this is open to the public, and we're trying to get word out to all of the hospices, to the funeral directors, to all of the other churches in the area that don't provide this, to anybody that can share with anyone else that you know is experiencing grief. And as I said, right now, and as Barrett has indicated, is really tough. There are complicating factors now for people to be able to go through this grief journey, because a lot of us are going through it without being able to see a body, not being able to have your traditional funeral services of celebration of life. It's just a real short and sweet, and some celebrations have been put on hold, even though the person has been gone for quite a while, even weeks or months. You're not able to celebrate that life or to end this portion of your grieving by having the traditional ceremony. So what I've been telling people, and since we suspended our grief share session for now, the people that were enrolled in it have my contact number, and I also have a co-lead whose name is Vonda Jones. We've given them our contact numbers and whatever, and they feel free to call us. So we're like 24/7 counselors as such, but just somebody that you can talk to. And people still have, I call them meltdowns, because you never know when the burden of grief will hit you. I've lost my husband for 5 years, and they say the average time for grief, and there is no real average time, I don't think, is 1 to 3 years. And they'll say you should be out of it by then. Well, people expect you to be out of it by then, but it's an individual thing. If you love deeply, you grieve deeply. And so you can't just say, okay, it's 3 years up and I'm through grieving. It doesn't work like that. It depends on how closely knit you were to that person, and a lot of other feelings that go along with grieving. So there's not a time frame for beginning or stopping grief. As I said, my husband, I lost him 5 years ago, and I still have moments where I have meltdowns where I just really miss him and the things that we did, and then the looking at the future that I know I won't get to do those things with him again. And there are people that are still in that same situation. So this is where Grief Share comes in, to let you know that it's all right to grieve, and you need to grieve in your own way. If it means that you wear something of that person all the time, or whatever it takes to bring you comfort and strength to move forward. And we say it is a journey, means that we're going through this. It's not a place to stay. The grief valley is not a place to stay. It's a place where you go through and you get your healing. Grieving a person or losing someone, you will never forget that person. And you will never forget the memories that you have of them. So Grief Share does not erase all of that pain, and it does not take away your grief for the loss of that person. And we say it's not a loss because we know where they are. So we haven't lost them. They're just gone on ahead of us. But we've just lost the physical presence of them. But we know that they're spiritually, they can be here if you feel that if you want to believe that, and I do. And a lot of people do feel that their loved ones are still here with them. But we do know that we haven't lost them because we know where they are. But it takes time. What Grief Share does is just help you to look at all of the many aspects of grieving, and to let you know that whatever you're doing, unless it's detrimental to your health or to your physical being, it's okay. We grieve in our own way. We get through it as best way we can, and then this helps you to adapt some positive solutions to getting through that pain. A lot of people feel anger, they feel abandonment, they feel guilt, and this seminar helps you to recognize that you're not the only person that feels that way, and it's normal. That's why one of the first things we talk about, is this normal? Is it normal that I want to, keep my husband's Bible right beside my nightstand? Or is it normal that I want to preserve everything in my son's room for right now and I don't want anybody to touch it? Or is it normal that I have my mama's scarf that I wear every day? You know, these kinds of things. Yes, that's normal. Whatever it takes to make you feel comfortable and getting through this loss, that's normal, as long as it's not, as I said, detrimental to our health. A lot of people do things that are detrimental, like they start drinking, or they get into drugs, or they overeat and forget about their own health while trying to calm that pain, to ease that pain within them. And that will work temporarily, but when you, after a few weeks, you're going to be fatter than you want to be, or you're going to wake up with headaches, or get into things that you really don't want on long term. We've had several people to be referred to us from some therapists in the area, and we were really thankful for that. Now we're trying to get the word out, not just for our church, but in general, about Grief Share, so that people can know that this is something that's available. And the cost for us, we facilitate it free of charge. The only cost to the person is to purchase your own workbook, and that's $15. And if you're not able to pay the $15, our church provides a scholarship. They'll pay for the booklet. It is a video-based group discussion workbook curriculum. You watch a video, which is geared to the topic for that day. We have group discussions, and then we talk about some of the areas in the workbook which you should have read ahead of time so we can discuss it. And we meet once a week for 2 hours, usually from 6 to 8 on Mondays. And it's a very casual session. Everybody comes comfortably dressed. We serve refreshments. They have time to chit chat before we start our sessions. And I think, Barry, you were asking about group therapy versus prescription medication. I think that the group therapy works best of all, because these ladies and gentlemen, and we've had some men to come through, which we were very thankful for, because men and women do grieve differently. Women tend to grieve more openly. Men tend to substitute other things in the place of their grief so as to avoid that grief, where women tend to cry or express their heartache more so than men do. But we've had several men to come through our program. 1, 2, 3, 4 men out of our 2 sessions that we've had. And they were really surprised as to how they were unknowingly grieving, just like their wife was, except they were avoiding it and putting other things in its place. So yeah, the group therapy helps better than the medication, because group therapy is a long-term thing. You can't stay on medicine but so long, unless you want to be a zombie. But group therapy is like you develop these friendships and this group support, which is 24/7. And we all, even the participants, open themselves up to the others in their group to say, call me at any time. Anytime you're feeling sad, anytime you feel angry, anytime you're having misery, call me. And so we've developed that kind of friendship within the group. And these people have come from all different walks of life. A lot of them are not even members of Ebenezer. They are just members of the community, of people who found out from seeing our banners hanging outside or by word of mouth. And I also put a put an announcement on my Facebook page, which helped us get 3 people in who were totally unaware that we had this available at Ebenezer. So, and not only do we push Ebenezer, if they are further across town, we tell them about St. Mark's, Macedonian Lutheran, Trinity, whatever's closest to them, we encourage them to get into those programs. And the rate of success has been great. Each participant fills out an evaluation form, but more so than that, we've seen visual successes of people that have come in there that were broken, that couldn't even express their grief. And when you come to this, it's a volunteer thing. I mean, we tell everybody, you've got to do the work. This is for you. I'm not here to, to slide you through whatever your grief issue is. I'm here to guide you through it, but you've got to do the work. And the work includes doing the workbook lessons, participating in the group sessions if you can. And some people are so broken, they can't at first, but the visual successes that I've seen is that after 2 or 3, or maybe 1 or 2 sessions, we find them opening up, talking about their loss and their anger or their abandonment or their guilt. I could have done more. Why didn't I take them to Chapel Hill? All these other things that people, go through when you lose someone. So the visual successes are what we base, in addition to the evaluation forms, are what we base our success rate on. And the attitude changes. A lot of people have come in not knowing what they're going to do, not wanting to move forward, still hanging on to things that they thought contributed to that person's death or things that they could have done better. But we're seeing by the end of the 13 weeks that they have a determination to move forward and to carry that person's legacy forward and to do something to honor their life. If that person had volunteered at hospice, guess what? I'm going to do that now that they're gone. So it's just all kinds of visual successes that we've seen, in addition to the positive remarks and evaluations that we received thus far. So I'm really excited about it. And Pastor Covington said that God laid it on his heart to select me, and I guess I needed it because I'm asking him, why would you select me when I'm still melting down in my own grief? He said, but it takes somebody who has really gone through that journey, who has really experienced that kind of a loss, to help someone else. And I find that Grief Share has really helped me to understand a lot of my own feelings. And it still helps me in many ways. Every time I lead the sessions, I pick up something different that helps me to be stronger in my journey. And I in turn pass that on to those. And a lot of all our participants, one of the things in the evaluation was that they were encouraged by my faith and by my strength to push myself forward through this and to help others. So Grief Share, and then we've had other people who have finished the course who have gone out to encourage other people based on what they've received from the Grief Share ministry. So it's a great ministry. And we are hoping that if you know of anyone that needs this service, not only from us, but from any of the participating churches, to please encourage them. It is an excellent 13 weeks spent to improve yourself and to help you understand the cycle of life. And even though we all know that this is coming for us and for our loved ones, we're never prepared regardless of the circumstances. And once they leave, it changes a lot of things. And Grief Share helps us to deal with those changes and to understand those changes and to understand God's will.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Vonda. Are there any, we're going to open up and see if there are any questions. Anybody got any questions?
That's good.
Okay.
So we will be starting back in September, and prior to that, we're planning to send out letters to all of the churches, as well as to the, as I said, funeral directors, hospice, other areas that would, to nursing facilities, other areas that would have people affected by loss. And if you know of anyone, or anyone on this call knows of anyone that needs help, even during the shutdown with COVID, I'm still helping people online or texting or calling. I've had lots of people to still call me or to text me or get
And
in touch with
they
me.
can reach you, Ebenezer.
Right? They can, and they can, yeah, they can call through Ebenezer, or they can call me on my line, on my direct line.
Okay.
My home number is what I'm using, my cell phone number, for anybody that wants to get me directly, because Ebenezer right now is, running on limited hours because we're not having church. But when we start back,
Well,
I'm sure.
we can certainly. I don't want to post your number up, but we can actually
Okay, you can post Ebenezer's number.
Okay,
And
we'll post it. Send you a referral, maybe.
yeah, well, yeah, they do that. A lot of people do call the church because there was a banner hanging out there. But Ebenezer's number is 336-226-8526. Is that right, Dorothy?
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
that's
tell them.
correct.
Okay, tell them to call the church, and then they will get in touch with me, and then I'll be happy to call them back and to help them through whatever I can, to provide them with literature, to talk with them, to pray with them, whatever they need at that point. That would be fine.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for the service that you provide and helping guide people through a very difficult journey. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
I wanted to say, I know folks, Natalia's put up Ebenezer's number, and she's going to add the website. So just look in the comment line. I want to say, I know this meeting was a little long, but I think it was important information, and I initially talked to Becky about doing it, and we were very pleased and a very pleasant surprise that that Stacy, the director at the health department, was so interested that she wanted to participate and join too. Are there any announcements from any partnering organizations? I know that Democratic Women is having a Meet the Candidate Zoom meeting on Tuesday. Is that this Tuesday, Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Um,
And the
and
speakers will be Ricky Hurtado and Eric Henry. And the first speaker is going to be Evelyn Graves Curtis from the Healing Station, and she too will bring information about the needs of the community and what the Healing Station is doing and what else can be done, and the needs as far as the people being affected by COVID-19.
okay. Thank you. You can still go to our website to find out how you can get more involved in what community agencies are doing. I want to be completely fair. The NAACP is a nonprofit nonpartisan organization. We announced about the Democratic Women. Are there any announcements from the Republican Party? Libertarian? Green? Okay. Down home, are you still there? You got any announcements? All right. I will say that.
Barrett, I've got an announcement.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to announce that area is going through a little bit of organizational change, the Alamance Racial Equity Alliance. We've recently incorporated, so we're an official nonprofit corporation. However, now we'll be going through the process of getting our EIN number and getting a bank account set up, and then applying to the IRS again to get our tax-exempt 501c3 status. So we're kind of operating in two organizations. One was our unincorporated association, which it is approved by the IRS to be a tax-exempt organization, but it's not really incorporated. And we were advised that there's lots of reasons why we need to be incorporated. So we're going down that process now. And we had a very successful groundwater presentation. I guess it was last Saturday. We did it via Zoom, but it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do Zoom virtual phase 1 2-day trainings. So we're going to be trying to get people connected in other ways.
So Bob, for the benefit of folks who might be new on the line, would you tell them what area and groundwater are?
Oh, sure. Well, AREA stands for the Alamance Racial Equity Alliance, and we partner with the Racial Equity Institute, which is an organization out of Greensboro. That's really a national organization. They have clients all over the country. And so we're a group of anti-racist people, and the Racial Equity Institute does training programs to, I guess, sensitize people to how prevalent systemic racism is in our society today. And through its 2-day program to really map out the history as to how it all came about. Why do white people have these white supremacy attitudes and biases and prejudices? Where did all that come from? And so it really helps to understand that. And just going through the history of how this country was formed around to benefit white people, and to begin with, especially white men. So this is a necessary first step, this education to begin to dismantle systemic racism. The education isn't sufficient to do that, but it's a necessary first step, I believe. And so we're trying to get that critical mass of people in our community to go through this training. Does that help?
That's very helpful. Thank you very much, and congratulations on becoming a nonprofit. If you have not been to a groundwater event, please go to it. One of the things I tell people all the time is that I've been to 3 of these, and one of the things I noticed is that all the white people are furiously writing notes, and all the black people are sitting around like, I knew it all along. But it's because they back up all of the things that we think is anecdotal information about systematic racism, and they put data with it so they can prove what we have kind of suspected all along. So I encourage you to do that. We are also, the NAACP is also partnering with a community organization to bring one of the lynching monuments to Alamance County. We are participating in conversations you have to have a whole program of how you intend to use this monument to combat racism and have conversations about race. And many of you know that there's a lynching memorial, and each person who was lynched in the United States by county is on the memorial. There is a slab with somebody's name on it from Alamance County. And we're doing the work to get that slab, because there are 2 monuments. So when you go to the lynching memorial, you will see the slab with the name on it, but they made 2 slabs for every county. So the other county, if you apply for the other slab, if you apply for it, they will transport it to you. And so we know why Outlaw was lynched right on the courthouse square. I found out talking to the county historian that the place where he was hung, there was a tree right there on the corner where the memorial park is. That park is in the spot where the tree was, right in front of the courthouse. And on Monday, there's going to be a direct action. I think Natalia and secretaries are going to send out direct action about, from the national NAACP, about pressuring our Congress people to include in the federal relief for the virus, the pandemic. You know, they're appropriating money, but we want to make sure that they appropriate money so that it will bolster the mechanisms for voting, so that people will be able, that the communities, the municipalities will be funded so that they can make the necessary provisions for whatever they have to do in order to make sure everybody has equal and fair access to the ballot in these kind of very crucial times. People are still trying to infringe on our access to the ballot even while we kind of distracted with staying healthy and safe. We got to watch everybody all the time. So, and I understand that they are trying to do the current administration would like to get rid of the U.S. Postal Service, and so they're not. It is separate. It's actually an independent organization from the federal government, but they are trying to cut funds. And who works? They got a bunch of contracted folks there, but who works for the Post Service? Black and brown and poor white people in large numbers. So we're also keeping an eye on that. Is there anything else I missed, Natalia or Dr. Yarborough?
I think that's good. Just check in the branch,
so,
and you'll see it on social media of what to do for that day of action. So we're going to ask you to make a few phone calls or write an email.
From the Board of Elections, the state NAACP has sued the state Board of Elections over the new voting equipment in counties such as Alamance. There are about now 19 counties. So we want to stay on top of that to see what action will be taken. What we also are looking at is the reason the state is suing, and part of it has to do with the barcode that was on the ballots. So we will be meeting on Tuesday, and then we can keep everyone posted. The other thing that we need to be aware of is absentee balloting, and we may have to encourage a lot of people to use absentee ballots, and of course there are a lot of people who don't want you to use absentee ballots because that might mean a lot more people will be able to vote. So I think we need to stay on top of that issue as well. So we will be meeting Tuesday, and then we will provide additional information as we get it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. And the other thing is, since Bob Bird is on, this is national. The grief information was very good, but this is also National Mental Health Month. And I'm wondering if Bob could put something on his website or put something on the NAACP's website, because with people having to stay in, it is this COVID-19 is affecting people mentally. So I'm wondering if Bob would make a few comments, statements, provide a resource either on his site, on the and on the NAACP site, and we will also share it at the meeting on Tuesday. Because if healthcare official or people are committing suicide, there are people staying in the house not knowing what to do, so it does affect your mental health. And I know he has been researching mental health for a certain population, but it affects all of us.
Thank you, Dorothy, for mentioning that. And I am on the Cardinal Board, Cardinal Innovations Healthcare Board, which oversees the provision of mental health services in 20 counties for people who receive Medicaid benefits and also people who are uninsured. And there's a lot of resources from the Cardinal Innovations Healthcare website. So I'll send some links out and make note of the fact about this as Mental Health Month. So thank you very much for bringing that out.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Thank you, Bob. Becky did not mention this, I don't think, maybe she did, but one of the things that we were able to accomplish is to get mobile hand washing stations across the county. I think we're gonna get 12 of them. So people who, one of the things is if you can't shelter and stay at home, where are you supposed to wash your hands? And especially with the libraries closed and public bathrooms. So those should be arriving in the next couple of weeks. And I think that's it. We're gonna split this meeting up into 2 segments, and so they will be posted one is grief counseling and one, or grief share, and the other as the Department of Health response, and we're going to separate them so that they won't be quite as long, and you can watch them separately. So when we post those, be sure and share those with people if they weren't able to come to this meeting, so they can get to that, especially in your faith communities about the grief share. I think that's really important. And if there's nothing else, is there anything else? Did I miss anything? All right, thanks again for everybody's dedication and their willingness to keep involved and stay involved. Oh, David Sproul, shout out to him. He's making masks over at the Bynum Center. I think that's it. We'll keep you posted by everything, and we'll see you next month. I don't know.
And Lydia Jones is also making face mask, Barrett.
Okay, excellent. And I think they were on the news the other day. Moortown, you know. So Moortown is one of our partnering organizations. Oh, and a last commercial. If you are interested, I don't know what point you joined this call, but if you're interested in renewing your dues or paying dues, then you can go to our website. We got a handy feature on there to take care of that. There's also a list of committees on there, because the real work of this organization is done through committee work. And well, not the real work, but a lot of the heavy lifting is done by committee work. And so we appreciate all the chairs. Thank you so much to Eric, our communications chair, for the fantastic graphics we got up here today, and the technological support. Thank you again, Natalia, who is the branch of Girl Friday. Whatever we need, she somehow seems to magically make it appear. Thanks for helping out with that website from the health department too. If all hearts and minds are clear, I will adjourn this meeting. I'll see y'all. Be safe.
Thank you.